Hello friends, this is Vitaly Tkachenko and the School of Creativity, a seascape with a female figure. The girl stands and looks at the beautiful sea. We have such cloudy weather, a colorful and vibrant landscape. I will paint with oil. I will definitely need, of course, large brushes, a fan brush, and a smaller brush. Here we will do it this way. These are our bristles, stiff little brushes, 4 pieces and 2, and we can even add one more, but that will be at the very end. We have the thinnest one, a round one, a medium one with a slanted edge, and the thinnest one for detailing. In total, we have 7 brushes. 3, 3, 6, and the 7th is just like this bristle. That's it. This is our variety of brushes and a palette set, which is essential for painting. White, ultramarine, indigo, umber, burnt, red, cadmium, dark. You can replace them with light, medium, it doesn't matter. Yellow. You can also replace it with any color, and orange can be varied in the same way. Warm and cool colors separately, warm colors separately. I would divide this composition into 2 approaches. That is, I will first paint the sea, and then I will insert the figure of the girl into the sea, into the seascape. So, let's get started. I will first paint the sea. I won't sketch anything, just the process of painting the sea. I will rise for more free movements. I take a large background brush. I will dilute it with oil. And the first thing I will do, regardless of the female figure, is to mix this gray color. It consists of white and indigo. I need a cloudy gray color. This will serve as my anchor point for color. I take this color and I need to boldly apply it with the largest brush properly. Fill the entire canvas. Just boldly stain all of it. Use plenty of paint, but keep in mind that the layer of paint should not be applied too thickly. A bit. So I press down slightly and gently on the brush, and then boldly and with confidence apply everything carefully like this. I will take some oil. Without oil, it just won't glide. To avoid any problems with drawing the girl so that she doesn't restrict us, we could first outline her sketch together. To make a sketch first and then revolve around it. But I didn't go that way today because I want to give you a task that allows for a little bit more freedom, so you don't limit yourselves in anything. Yes. And I also didn't mention that this painting can be done very successfully with any other material, such as gouache or acrylic. I wouldn't do it in watercolor, although it can be done in watercolor too, but the technique would be drastically different, of course. There is no need to compare oil and watercolor. These are 2 completely different approaches, but acrylic and gouache can definitely be compared. So, look at what we have here. A roughly painted canvas. I always remove any excess paint with a dry brush, just a little bit to even it out. The tone of the canvas. But I am not depicting some ideal gray rectangle. I don't need that. Next, we can calmly work with color on this surface. The color scheme of the entire painting is gray, right? Overcast weather, such restless weather, that's why I chose this color, as it will be easiest to work with moving forward. What do I suggest doing next? I take white and start to make... Let's do it this way. Instead of white, let's take ink, indigo. I will find the horizon. The horizon is very easy to find here. It's probably 1, 2, 3, a quarter of the canvas, a 4th part, a lot of water and little sky. I took indigo and marked the horizon for myself. Right away, working without a thinner, already without oil, I will slightly darken this area. I slightly darken it horizontally, darken, so that we can already feel the sense of water down here. In other words, I start to add these sensations to my mind while simultaneously putting them on the canvas. So look, I work with this kind of breath. The shadow is predominantly from below. You see, yes, here is the shadow. We have a shadow here. If we compare it with the reference, we have such darkening. that works horizontally and everything is slightly blended. That is, I let the paint blend in. It doesn't lay down in harsh clumps. Here you can also observe similar shades in principle on the clouds. There are also some darkenings there. Here I place a shadow. I applied it and blended it with a dry brush, and I work without oil, since there is already a certain amount of oil on the canvas. It glides comfortably. Next, we can observe what bluish shades are there. Of course, you take a bit of ultramarine like this and push it in there. You can mix it with a little white or not. It's really up to your taste. I'll add a little ultramarine here. On the sky, and I comfortably smooth it out with a dry brush. Everything blends beautifully, creating such color transitions. We can also discover a reddish color there. I even take red and a little bit of brown. I have some brown umber here, and I'll add a little bit like this. Now we see the clouds, and I'm already working with these movements. Look, it's something like a sunset in overcast weather, but I'm softening it a bit. Do you see? I slightly mute the color a bit. That is, I don't let certain shades run wild so that they aren't too bright. The painting is not in a bright spirit. I'll add a little bit of this paint. I took a bit of yellow, a bit of red, but I immediately blend it into the canvas, meaning I slightly mute it with a dry brush like this. I'll mix it in a little. Maybe I can tone it down just a little more. Well, in the reference it's not that bright, but I think I can leave it like this because it should have a bit of something brighter, a little more cheerful at sunset. Just a bit. We can move a bit back and forth, plus or minus. After all, improvisation hasn't been cancelled either. Here, a little more shadow. And now I'll add some clouds. I'm grabbing it boldly like this. Titanium white. And with this movement, you see a short vertical motion. I begin to apply the density of the clouds. Here too, one can, in principle, improvise a little, I think. Here, it's as if God himself has encouraged me to add something personal. I take some here and add a few clouds. Well, one can even come up with these clouds independently. I placed it like this, and using a dry brush, I start refining them. As usual, I recommend slightly muting and blending the lower parts. Just a little bit of blending like this. At the same time, you get some reflections. Also, take a small brush, a bit smaller, and add some nuances. For example, these little clouds, and then puff them up a bit with the wind, like this. You can work with clean white paints in this direction, with a curved element of the hands, like this, with a curved approach. Just a little movement, like this. A bit in the breeze, let them go like this, and slightly smudge the lower part. There you go, you've got cool clouds. You can add a little more. I don't strictly adhere to the drawing. I just catch the shape roughly, but the feeling should be the same. You can add a bit of blue between them, but make sure to tone it down a little. That is, it is an essential factor for you to have a play of softness, meaning not clarity, not rigidity. You can play with shadows, for example, of this kind. If you want to deepen the frown of the sky a bit, you can add blue there, or you can add indigo if you wish. Let's add some cloudiness like this, a little bit of contrast in the sky. This adds all the indigo with a touch of ultramarine. We added a bit more and softened it slightly. Whatever you add, if you are not making a hard part, meaning you are not strongly highlighting something in the foreground, you should definitely blend it a little. That is, soften the edges. This is how we get clouds fluffy with a little bit of shadow, and they look three-dimensional. Everything is ready, and these same shades will now flow onto the water. Take some blue and just like this. Take it. And, well, with order, not disorder. There is orderliness. If you look, we have waves there, right? Between the waves, there are such bluish shadows. Distribute a little blue paint between the future waves. But again, you will slightly soften it. Smudge it horizontally and soften it like this. And the same thing that was in the sky. Are there pink shades? Of course there are. Add a little bit of pink shades. Like this, just a bit on the water. Like this. Add it. I would just like to remind you that the girl will be placed over the wet paint. Therefore, we shouldn't apply too much paint. Just a little bit. We need to do it carefully. You see, just a little bit of this. We also have a bit of yellow, a bit of orange. You can even add a little bit of orange to create a connection between the sky and the water. Here, wonderful. Now we just move on to the fan brush. I take a fan brush, just in case I'll wash it, and I'll add some white paint, the color white. And with white color, it already looks very cheerful. And with oil, I will distribute the waves a bit more importantly. Let's go. We can actually do it like this from above, approaching like this, like this, like this. Even the most convenient option is to come from above like this. And a little bit with a dry brush from the top. We softened it a bit, even tore it. The blemish, the white paint remains in the foreground, while the upper part fades away. Right. So, I missed it once again. I missed a part. See how I do this with these movements. This is how I apply it. And with a dry brush, I start to pull and tear the foam horizontally. Look at how cool it turns out. It appears white at the bottom and fades away at the top. Here's a life hack for painting the incoming foam. And one more time, we can organize another one a little lower, like this. Please, it wobbles a little. It doesn't have to be perfectly smooth, applied. And with such movements, it was smeared upwards, like this, upwards. Wonderful. Let's make another one with a larger gap, somewhere closer to here. We also take some white paint and a little bit of oil. We applied it like this. Here it is. And we pulled it up. And we pulled it up, smeared it, smeared it, smeared it. We let it breathe a little at the top like this. When stretching, it loses its intensity. You can repeat this movement again, just like that. And we continued to pull. We pulled, 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 pulled. And as I pull, do you see how I do it? With what movements? We are capturing the movement. Let's work a little on the lower part. Here everything is not so contrasting. Here I place the brush like this. She was standing like this. And now I turn it with the wide side and, like with a broom, I add a little shine to the sand. There. Clear, just like that. Exactly like that. A little bit of shine, a sparkle on the sand. But besides the shine, there are also shadows, right? Here we take indigo, brown, ultramarine, something like that, and we start making movements like this. The girl is not here, but there should already be traces and some shadows on the sand. Please. Not overly bright, of course. The lighting should be subtle and not too intense, as we want to avoid any harshness. Everything is quite splotchy, still indigo, which gives it a unique and interesting texture. Please, we have applied shadows to enhance the depth and dimension of the scene. We will apply slightly more contrasting shadows a little later to further accentuate the details and create a more dynamic visual effect. The goal is to achieve a balanced and aesthetically pleasing look that is both captivating and harmonious. But it is necessary to use indigo and brown paint, and ultramarine can be used to slightly emphasize the foam. I can already start working on this, but for that, I probably took a flat synthetic brush. It penetrates better into these areas and creates such highlights. We need to highlight the incoming foam, just a little, remember? We need to smudge it a bit, right? From the bottom, of course. Indigo. Probably ultramarine will be even better. Just like that. We can highlight each one a little. But I would still correct some mistakes in this painting that I see there. I believe the front wave should be more contrasting. Darker, that is, like this. The other highlights are very dark on the other waves, which I believe should not be so contrasting. Yes, we will emphasize them a little, but the darkest, most obvious shadow, in my opinion, should be in the foreground. We can darken these areas quite calmly, as they are also in the foreground. Here is the indigo blue, but it's all a bit, you see, I am blending it, meaning it doesn't have distinct, let's say like this. Here I took a lot of paint, a bit more. I took it and carefully smeared it with a dry fan brush. Here is the left corner, not a corner, but the edge. Darken it a little, so that the focus goes to the young girl. With a flat brush, we slightly highlight the underwaves. Well, I wouldn't delve too deeply into that. In the painting, I see the darkening in the background. It is quite dark there. I do not recommend making it as dark as it is. You can darken it a little, of course, but I still don't recommend making anything in the background too dark. Like this. Well, nevertheless, I will darken it a bit. Some waves can be lightened again, for example. Here you take the white paint completely calmly and highlight something with the white color if you want. You can even create some new wave. Here you take a flat brush and calmly do something like this. And then you gently, calmly smear the upper part. Like this. One more time. We applied this kind of big stroke. Dry brush. The upper part is smeared. You see, the brush may not change. That is, rather on the contrary, things change, but the technique does not change. We apply it, cut the upper part, blend it, and it results in beauty. Here is the first stage. It can probably be said that it is ready. Next, we move on to the important stage of carefully applying and seamlessly inserting the girl directly into the scene. Let's go. So we begin the second part. Let's say the second part of our painting. And this will be the main character. In the execution, we will focus on the girl, the figure. I even made a preliminary sketch of the girl's figure, and want to draw your attention to the fact that when applying the drawing, I want to point out that if we break down the girl into a scheme, look, the head, the proportions of the torso, and let's say down to the dress. We can see 3 equal segments, but the head is slightly smaller. Essentially, the body and the dress, if we roughly divide this, we see here 2 equal segments, and the head is slightly smaller. That is, in total, with the hair, there are 3 segments, like this. Here we add our legs. One is positioned almost vertically, while the other is slightly tilted because the heel is back and the leg is pushed back. Our arms are out to the sides, and therefore we will divide the figure into segments. The legs are certainly significantly longer than, let's say, the torso. I would even say that this leg, yes, is the longest of the two, because one is closer, which means it appears longer. This is an equal proportion if we take these 2 segments. That is, look at the proportions. In order to create a proportional girl, we need to consider these proportions. So, see, this segment is essentially equal to this one. You can divide it like this. 1, 2, that is, the legs are the same as the torso along with the dress. And here are equal proportions. This one is equal to that one. The head is a little smaller. And here we go. We will need to take a thinner brush now. We already have the sea painted. Yes, we will return to it later. We will be working on the main character. I'll take just a little bit more like this. Like this, you see? I will take white paint, a fine brush, and dilute the white paint to make it thinner. Look, the proportions of my canvas are longer than in the reference, so I will make the girl a little shorter. She won't be as tall as long. I will make her approximately, well, let's do it this way. She will start here. Her right leg will be here, and somewhere around here will be her head. That is, like this. She will be positioned in the middle of the canvas. You can roughly measure where the center will be by eye, as she will stand at the center. And let's go. We take white paint, the whitewash, and we start outlining with segments first. Well, let's try. Look, we have it. The head. Head. I am currently sketching it without any hair, so I have roughly outlined an oval head. Next, I will carefully outline it in the shape of a trapezoid. Like this, in the shape of a trapezoid, making sure all sides are even and precise. The torso is like this for now. You see, it's a trapezoid, meaning the details are significantly reduced. The shoulders are not wide. It's a trapezoid shape. We pay close attention to the proportions, as I mentioned before. Next, I sketch the dress directly, as I mentioned. The torso is slightly larger than the head, of course. A bit. And the dress is almost exactly approximately the same segment as the torso. Here is this proportion. You can slightly elongate it, just a bit like this. I am adding a dress to my wardrobe, something like this. And I think, with one of her arms, she gently holds the right side. As a result, one part is slightly lower, and the other part is higher. And here I outline everything in white. Next, pay attention. Next, we have the legs. And the legs need to be positioned correctly in relation to these 2 points concerning the waist. They need to be placed properly. In fact, you can even change the paint so that it is immediately clear where the flesh color is, where the body is, and where the fabric is. I take orange, add white, and it turns out to be light orange. Legs. The legs are a bit brighter, with a bit more orange. One leg is positioned right under the point of the trapezoid, perpendicular, slightly at an angle, not straight, but a little bit angled, stopping here where we will have the knee. It will be quite twisted, a little in a different direction. 1. And a slight tilt. A slight tilt. Like this. Just a little curve, just a bit, a little bit. 1, 2, little knee, legs are thin, paint with oil. 1. And here we have the calf muscle, which is located in the lower leg. This particular part appears to be slightly swollen. The upper part of the calf muscle seems to be a bit wider. The bottom part of the structure, as you can see, is naturally a bit narrower than the rest. And here we have the feet, which are positioned in such a way to provide stability. This is quite an interesting turn of events. If we take the foot, it will be easier to read on this segment. Look, we have line 1, line 2, line 3. 4 lines. Here we have it wider, of course, and here the chicken goes narrower. The ankle is thinner, and this is how the leg goes with the heel, meaning it is in this position, turned out, not long. The second leg, you see, how it will go with such a little tilt. Like this, it will take us back. The second leg is just right next to it. We carefully outline the second leg. There is indeed, of course, a significant distance between them. Of course there is. And I will remind you that the left leg, from us, from our side, is longer. The left leg appears to be significantly longer than the right one. This difference is quite noticeable here. Maybe, yes, I could be wrong, but it seems to me that it will be hard to see what is happening in this sketch overall. However, I will show you again on this sketch. The leg has a curve with the heel and the toe, but the toe is not slightly visible. This is what the leg looks like. Here it is, clearly shown in a schematic way. Here we have a little bit of a crust. It's convex, right? Now if we fill all of this with oil, look, we get the leg. Then of course, shadows will come in and so on. But here is the proportion. One is a little longer, the other leg is shorter. Next come the arms. I carefully add the shoulders to the trapezius muscle. I add shoulders to the trapezoids. One arm is going. Thinner, of course, thinner. The shoulders are semicircular. The elbows are facing each other. I carefully bring my arm to the lower back, to the waist, making sure to move slowly and gently. And here is the elbow, as you can see. Here is the little elbow, right here. The arms are slender and delicate. The forearm and wrist are much more slender and thinner. Here it is, as you can see. The second arm, right here in front of us. At the level of the waist, it changes its direction and goes already. Here to the right wrist, here it is. Here we get the hands. Then you are already back to the diagram. Right. In the diagram, one is slightly higher and the other is a little lower. The shoulders are round and they are at the level of the waist, bending slightly. Round shoulders. There you have the diagram. We divided it into segments. Now we start working with tone. Well, let's start right away with the legs. I take a delicious and very juicy orange and a bit more white. And let's use some orange, a little white, And this is the orange paint that we get. I will slightly darken it with brown paint. Umbra, that is burnt. And let's fill in the legs right away. Let's go just like that, so nothing gets in our way. The paint, of course, will definitely slide off and will constantly mix with the background. Wipe the brush more often, frequently, to ensure that you refresh the color. Well, those who work with acrylic, it's really great. Nothing smears, all correct, it lays down nicely, and nothing gets in the way. Here we go. The legs can now be darkened. Look, I take a clean brown color, umbra, and there is a shadow under the dress. I'm applying umbra, a bit darker like this. I'm applying, and downwards. You must blend it out like this. Pull it together. You can also add a little red to the umbra, to the dark brown color, to achieve an even darker, beautiful tan, for a more intense effect and depth to the overall appearance of the tan, especially on the legs, which should be darker. Yeah? The thighs can be slightly widened if we feel that the legs are too thin. We can slightly expand them toward the top. The upper part of the legs should also be darker. As you can see, I am already darkening the shin area. I am darkening the inner part. The brush will need to be rinsed and cleaned very often, of course. Like this. From one edge. On one edge I make it darker, and with a dry brush I gently blend it. Like this. Here it is. What do we see on the legs, on the feet? We also see perhaps a bit of a shadow. The little foot is also a bit darker. I will make it. You can add a little bit of red. Mix red with brown already. This color will be more tanned. We have a brighter color like this. Orange, red and brown are quite bright and juicy colors for these shadows. The brush will get dirty quickly if you are working with oil. So be careful. We work a little and I don't press too hard on the brush, which helps it not to get dirty too quickly. We carefully outline, and this area on the leg, make it a bit darker. It's important for us to create volume on the legs. It's certainly very important. We have a long-legged girl here, and I think I'll indeed make one of her legs a little longer. Absolutely, undoubtedly. Well, you see, there are shadows, but it's impossible to exist without light, right? We take white and yellow, definitely in roughly equal proportions, and the calf area is highlighted like this. We apply it and blend it a little. I understand that you will face difficulties when applying paint on wet paint is a C. If there is a chance to let it dry, let it dry. It will be easier. Absolutely, of course. There is no sin in hiding anything here. You can simply let it dry and then calmly apply the girl on the dry paint. That's also a very good option, but I will show you how it can be done in one go. Well, if you have the opportunity to do it in two, then do it in two. It will be, of course, indeed simpler, just like this. So, we are using such bright and vibrant, bolder shades in our designs to make a bold statement. The heel remains light. Did you notice? The heel can be slightly brightened like this. The heel of the foot, the inner part is dark. That's great, just like that. So, hands, we already have some kind of base for them, right? But we need to make them three-dimensional as well. Let's take orange and brown. We'll start with that. Now the arms are tanned. I take it again. Don't forget about the oils. The oils are useful here too. You can't spoil porridge by adding oil. This way I'll darken them a bit. The shoulders can be slightly rounded, which is perfectly fine. Why not? Remember the proportions. The arms, of course, are thinner than the legs, and this is an important detail to keep in mind. Basically, there isn't any very obvious light on the hands. But except for the left hand, you can take white, take a little orange, add white to the orange, and very carefully and precisely apply it along the contour of the left shoulder, shoulder area, and forearm, and then lightly blend it with a dry brush, and gently. I constantly want to add a shadow right here, an even darker one. I'll take some indigo, just a little, and mix it with a bit of red. And yet the shadow under the dress needs to be quite contrasting. Well, it's quite dark, and it really highlights the legs against the water, like a shadow. Just a little smudge, of course. It won't hurt. And the right part of the thigh, I darken it a bit, like this. We can see it, right? We're already achieving the effect of full volume. And it gives us, of course, the shadow. Here is the shadow, the contrast is gone. Everything is just splendid. For now, it can be left as is. Please kindly, and do not ever forget to leave your hands and feet alone. I don't know, of course you really need to definitely compare carefully with the reference here. And if you're having difficulties with mixing paints, if the oil, I repeat, let it dry, it will be 2 to 3 times easier to apply. What will I do next? I will probably take a round bristle brush and work on the dress while leaving the arms and legs aside. I will use white paint, but I won't take too much. Here we have a gray surface. And just look at what happens if I do it like this, like that. Even here it turns out just like a waistline. This already looks like a dress. Just a little smudging, like this. Don't take too much paint, don't grab it. For now, this is just a mini underpainting. Allah, I'm doing, see? Look how it's already. Oops, and the dress is ready. Now I take and start working on it. I take significantly more white paint, significantly more. I start making these kinds of folds, look, just like this. I bring the folds close to the arm, a bit carefully, a little with oil. I am applying white paint in relation to the left arm right here. Part of the dress is right here. It has a bit of lace with a little bit of lace trim here. That is, we apply white paint on gray and we get folds. That's it. I probably definitely wouldn't make it as black on this side as in the picture. No, let's have a more natural dress. Don't take black, well, let's just take a little, just a little. Let's add, but I wouldn't darken the dress too much. It's not necessary. You can take, look, indigo, just take a little bit and use it with your hand. You darken a little bit like this with a fine brush, making all the folds stand out. Yes, you can do that. I would even add a bit of blue to the indigo, just a little blue where the hand is, especially under the hand. We take it and place the folds there, like this, bluish but not bright blue, of course. Bright blue is not needed, just a little bit here. And that's it. I smear it a little. Everything. I smear it a little. And here too, on the lower back, we will make such shadows, like this. Good. Now you can calmly and without any rush take your time and easily create volume in the hair. Here, I recommend taking a dry brush and lightly removing any excess paint from the inside. Just take it dry like this. You can even dampen it a little. We took it so that the gray color wouldn't interfere with you. We removed it. I leave this same brush stiff and fine brown paint on my palette. I am just a bit adding a little yellow to it and a touch more. Just a tiny bit of yellow. We get this beautiful shade of color and we start slowly and carefully filling it in. At the moment the image is in black and white. The hair remains unchanged. You can slightly lower the waves on the shoulders of the hair by gently adjusting the curls, making sure to maintain the natural flow and texture. This technique helps in achieving a more relaxed and smooth appearance, giving the hair a softer and more manageable look. Yellow and umber. Beautiful shades of rich colors like yellow and umber. Like this, and with longer waves, longer... Yes, the paint mixes, of course, so... Indeed. Wipe the brush. Don't forget to wipe the brushes. Like this. Well, and of course, thanks to the fine brush, some details need to be added. Now we just take indigo and umber, the right side of the hair, like this, a bit. We slightly twist the wave, adding a bit more shadow. I add shadow to the right side of the head, slightly. I won't make such a dark head, so contrasting, because it seems to me that it turns out too black here. In the reference, you can do it a bit in your own style, in your own way. To achieve a light brown-haired girl with fair hair, take white paint, add a little yellow, and with a fine brush, gently apply it from the direction of the sunlight, allowing the colors to mix a bit. It's okay to do this. Just make some thin, delicate strokes. Wipe the brush. You can see the strokes slightly curve, giving a wavy effect. We are working with the finest brush, white, yellow, and don't forget to rinse the brush. Do not rinse the brush, but clean it instead. It doesn't need to be rinsed, but you can use a little oil, of course. I will also darken the windows a bit. Let's mix the paints a little to achieve smooth transitions on the head, meaning there shouldn't be any harsh spots. If you want, we can make the hair longer. Please, we can let it down, but you will also encounter the fact that the paint will mix quickly. We thoroughly wipe the brushes, we wipe them carefully. The left side is more illuminated, while the right side is darker on the head. And here is another important spot on the hands. Take some white, take some orange, and place the color here on the brush of the hand. You can draw the hands as if they are in mittens, meaning it's not necessary to depict the fingers, as they are not visible. We have painted over all the white outlines. The white outline of the girl should no longer remain. The most I can probably add is a shadow on the lower back. I will take a bit of light blue and gray, and maybe add a little under the hair, like some folds here. A little darkening, slightly, and a bit of shadow and some dimness. On the dress, if you like, you can take a little indigo and add some cute little folds as well. Such lace details. I think this is turning out quite well. Well, let's take another look at the hands to see if we can make something a bit darker or do something else. In principle, I think this looks fine, but maybe we could go over it once more with a darker shade. You can see that one shoulder is lighter on one side, while the other is a bit darker on the other side. Overall, I think it looks pretty good. And of course, we definitely need to do what? Here I will add the hair. This is the right spot for it. Ensure to definitely add a shadow from the girl. Here really stands the girl. She steps into the water and a shadow should appear from it. Take a bit of indigo, a little blue, and create the reflection shadow like this. We took indigo, added some ultramarine and a bit of blue, and outlined the shadow. First, we make it not too dark, more bluish, so probably more ultramarine. We apply it with horizontal spots, like this. Here, and then you simply take pure indigo and you can just add it directly as darker traces like this. And the shadow from the girl is darker like this, darker, darker. To create this, start with a small stroke, just like this. Make sure it is horizontal. Then repeat the same motion, like this. Don't forget to add a stroke from the second leg as well. This will ensure the shape is complete and accurate. Indigo. Right from the base, a shadow went straight under the legs. Right under the legs. Some mediums like these, just brush strokes. Started with a bluish color, ended up with indigo, just like that. I looked at it once more, and let's add a piece of the dress here. If you want, we can even make the dress longer, right here. That works too. Let's add more details. We take the white paint right here and carefully add it to both sides of the canvas. This is how it's done step by step. Why not give it a try and see the amazing results for yourself? Well, let's see. Let's still add a shadow under the hand right here with blue and ultramarine. Take it and emphasize right here under the hand. Let me do this too, like this, so that it really lies down. The hand is on the dress. I emphasize and slightly smudge, but not into the hand, of course. I blend it out towards the dress. Here, be careful. Don't smudge too much with the hand. Carefully. Well, here we are. And now we can return to the ocean, to the water, to the sea, however you like. Let's analyze what can be added. Well, look, you can add anything here. Let's move on. Return, refine, adjust. Well, of course, you can add more waves there. You can use anything, right? Here, you take the white foam, that is, the white paint. You can work a little in your own way. Just add a bit of movement to the water, a little bit of white foam. Like this, we take it. And we can add a little more like this, perhaps by using a slightly different technique or approach. If we want to create more lacy foam, we can add it with these lace-like movements, which can be achieved by gently flicking the brush. Just a little bit more. And with a small round brush, we can whip up a bit more foam, making sure to use light, circular motions. It will actually look even better than in the reference, giving it a more realistic and dynamic appearance. Let's add a bit more. You can add some shadows. If you want, you can. I intentionally didn't emphasize the foam too much with black, but theoretically, you can definitely highlight it darker if you wish. Make them more expressive, like this. Take indigo, take blue, and right underneath them, we emphasize a little bit. Well, I'm not a fan of such black shadows on the water, so I will probably leave it as it is. I'll add a little bit here, and then I'll call it a day. Maybe I'll add it. We'll see. Here in this place, well, indeed, there is such a darkening, or rather, an obscuration. Some brown color is intermingled a bit more with red and even slightly with blue like this. There's also a swirling cloud here. Well, let it be like that. It can even be a little lighter, almost resembling a small swirl made gently with white paint. First of all, I made sure to create the shadow first, and then I lightened it up gradually. In essence, I just created that initial shadow. It can also be renewed. We can add a bit of blue, but just don't forget to blend it a little. Remember to gently smudge a little bit of the color to blend it seamlessly into the surrounding area, ensuring a smooth and natural look. So basically, I think the girl is definitely a more important character here than the water or the waves. This area in the reference is quite dark. I'm not sure it should be that dark. If you want to copy more precisely and accurately, then you can make it darker. Mix blue with indigo, and if you add a little bit here and blend it downwards, this is how I would add something here as a bonus. Well, here are the highlights, clearly with white paint. Don't forget to add seagulls like this. Here are the seagulls. Yes, I would take a fine brush, white paint, and of course very small and simple little ticks like these. Yes, this can certainly be added basically as much as you want. I would make them in various different sizes and with different angles to avoid symmetry. As many as I want, well, for heaven's sake, I will add more of them than I see in the reference, like these. There are little white birds of various different sizes. These birds come in absolutely different sizes, ranging from the tiniest to the largest you can imagine. In the enlarged version you can, well, let's take 1 liter. The enlarged version of the check mark. This is a template check mark. You can take this shape as a template, as a reference, like this. One part is slightly pressed, one wing becomes wider, the other thinner. The main thing is the thin edges. You can add this part here and we get a little bird, just like that. Well, here you can even skip adding the body. They are indeed already very far away here, not necessarily completely. Well, we just simply need to look at the painting from a distance, carefully assess the situation, and thoroughly see what we can finish and how. Now I will demonstrate the effect of a single frame in detail. What does a frame do to a painting in general? How does the painting look in the frame when there is a feeling that it needs to be finished, but something is still missing? In fact, there is actually one relatively small secret that you might not know. When we want to stop, but can't, we take and insert a frame a little. And we look carefully and closely. This is how the frame works. I would like to remind you that this painting can be done with acrylics, gouache, or oil. Today I painted such a picture with oil. In my opinion, it turned out quite well. Acrylic and gouache will differ a bit in technique, but a big advantage is that you can place the girl directly against the background of the sea without anything smudging. It will be a little more challenging to blend if you are working with acrylic, as the paint dries a bit faster. With oil, there are no such problems, but you will need to clean the brush more often. This was the School of Creativity, and I am Vitaly Tkachenko. Wishing everyone creative success. Bye-bye.